Today is about the situation of EU nationals working in UK companies. What does Brexit mean for them? What will it mean for them in the future? It's a year since we last had a Brexit discussion here at the FTIE Corporate Learning Alliance.
I think HR does need to start getting involved in some of the longer term thinking about the implications of Brexit. Clearly the biggest one of those is the impact on the labour market. What does whatever settlement we end up with around immigration mean for labour mobility?
People are in danger of falling out of love with organisations. That's a real problem if you're in the business of attracting and retaining talent. So that's a huge agenda for HR. How do we build organisations that people really want to come and express themselves in and do their best work?
We're not in change, we're in ambiguity. We don't know what's going on. So it's a wonderful opportunity for the HR function to get on the front foot, to almost be the nagging partner that reminds these executives, the senior folks in organizations, that they have to take these things seriously, that they have to look after their critical talent, they have to reassure them amidst all of this uncertainty.
I think what is surprising, if you think a year ago, where would we be now? I think we would expect to be far further ahead on the Brexit negotiations than we really are.
I'm very much looking forward to today's discussion. There are some really important issues about how open Britain is as a country, about what happens to the 3 million EU nationals that live in the UK, and what kind of regime we're going to have for immigration.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our FTIE Corporate Learning Alliance event on Brexit, and particularly the implications for HR, for people management, and for recruitment. Sitting with me today to talk about these matters are, on my left, Dan Dombey, who is the FT's very first Brexit editor. On my right is James Blitz, who is our Whitehall editor, following the intricacies of government. Previous to that, James was diplomatic editor, has been a political correspondent, very well versed in Brexit matters. It's a year, I don't know how many of you were here the last time we had a Brexit event, and it's 16 months since the referendum. And we're still no clearer, really, and we'll be talking about this, about where Brexit is going. And in particular, the position of EU citizens working in the UK. Can I ask, because I thought you were raising, how many of your companies are affected by this uncertainty? So the vast majority of you in the room. So we're going to try and see where we stand on this and whether we're likely to see any clarity. Dan, could we just talk about what kind of state, what is the workforce in the UK like when it comes to EU nationals? What sort of sectors are most affected and what sorts of sectors are most worried?
There are about 2 million EEA, that's European Economic Area nationals in the UK workforce. So about 2/3 of migrants here are economically active. And of those people, 49% work in low-skilled areas. Hospitality, food processing, construction. Britain has fairly well-established rules for immigration of skilled people. If you are, however, and this may affect many fewer of you, in the lower skilled sectors, then there is a problem because there is no current immigration regime for lower skilled people. This is a huge task. It's the biggest legislative task. It's the biggest executive task that any British government has faced since the war.
I think a couple of very important points there. I think people will be very interested in what you've said about higher skilled workers, that there is already a regime, a work permit regime for non-EEA nationals. Speaking at events like this in the past, people have said to me, that's well and good. Getting a work permit for non-EEA national is very expensive. You've got to add about £4,000 to your recruitment costs. I'd just like to ask you, James, are you as sanguine or as optimistic about the fact that we're definitely going to have things remaining pretty much as they are until March 2021?
There's a lot of reason to be sceptical and worried about the transition, which directly affects you, because it would, obviously, it's a cliff edge for everybody working in the corporate sector. Why is that? There's a lot of people that say 2 years is not enough for a lot of the sectors of the economy that might be affected. A lot of experts say you need between 3 and 5 years to put in place after 2019 what we would need to make everything run smoothly. So I think there is a debate, first of all, about how long the transition should be, and that debate may surface in Cabinet next year. And then it comes to the forward-leaning side of things, which is what are the new immigration arrangements going to be for new entrants into the EU after 2019? There things are much more vague, and you are not, in your area, going to see much definition from the government on that until much closer to the time we leave. On EU nationals, the current 3 million, what the government is saying is that it wants to move all those 3 million, if they wish to move on to what is called settled status, which is a kind of transitional status away from their current status to one in which they basically have something closer to a right to remain with equivalent rights. And Amber Rudd has said that that is going to be rolled out late next year so that the 3 million citizens can start applying for it. The question there, and the one which raises concern, I think, is the technical capability of the Home Office to process all those 3 million applications. If I was in your shoes, that's the thing that would probably most concern me for your employees and people whom you wish to work for you.
I'm Karen Seth from the Co-op. I look after HR for food stores and logistics, so low sector, skilled sector, but skill shortages as well. Drivers is a real challenge for us. The skill shortage is quite phenomenal. 45 to 60-year-olds we can employ tomorrow, but how do you build skilled workers through apprenticeships? So I think there is a broader perspective that it would be really interesting to get your perspective on this morning.
I think that's a very important point. I mean, what you're saying is Brexit and all of the potential disruption to freedom of movement comes at a time when so many other things are changing anyway, and when companies and HR directors face so many other issues as well. I could just ask you, Dan, I mean, there is a view among some of the more gung-ho philosophical Brexiteers that actually Brexit is an opportunity for a real UK productivity and training revolution. Now, as you've said, these things are medium to long term. These things take a long time to put in place, and the poor UK training regime is well over a century old. And yet, I mean, there are all these changes happening anyway. Even without Brexit, we would have to be looking at the way we do business, wouldn't we?
Now, it seems to me that there are two strands of this argument. One strand is, well, fine, we'll have to skill up, we'll have to invest more in training, we'll have to do all of this kind of stuff. That, I would argue, is the slightly more aspirational argument, to use that particular euphemism. Then the other argument is, well, what does this mean in terms of economic model? If we don't get a deal with the EU, or maybe even if we do, a lower tax jurisdiction, a lower regulation jurisdiction might be the way to go.
Tangi Morgan, I am a senior advisor at the BOE. We've talked a lot about people potentially having to leave Britain, but my thoughts are around folks that are highly skilled, okay, that are choosing themselves to leave. So the question then becomes, is there some regime that, may be in place to try and incentivize these highly skilled folks to stay?
We've got very alarming data about things like the nursing and medical professions, which are really very concerning and dependent on the EU. But so far what we're talking about is fewer people coming here, but still people coming here. In the financial services sector, for example, UBS had been talking about losing, very many people. This week, we heard that it was talking about fewer. There are issues such as schools, there are issues about culture, there's issues about network effects and tech and finance and so on, and those all can counterbalance. Those all can counterbalance the Brexit effect, the depreciation effect and so on. It clearly is, there was a leaked government paper which was a very early Home Office document, but it clearly is a government concern to continue to retain high-skilled people.
I think anybody in your position needs to leave a large part of their thinking in a very grey zone called we don't know what's going to happen. The unknowns, things may go completely wrong. Even in the worst case scenario, I think you can give the assurance to your EU employees at this moment that settled status programme has a decent chance of working.
And given that's an extra 2 years, what that actually means is, you know what? Brexit is a problem for me, the HR administrator, and not you, my staff. Because you, my staff, will have been here for long enough. The people who are here in 2017 will have been in the UK for 4 or more years in 2021. You will be here long enough. You are, in any case, the high-skilled people the UK wants. You are the people who will have been here for 4 or 5 years more or less by the time Brexit occurs, certainly more than 2 years, you can stay here.
I wish we could send you home in a slightly happier frame of mind, but I hope it's at least been a slightly better informed one. I'd like to thank you all very much for being here today. Thank you.
The event was fantastic, gave a nice, clear understanding of the issues in hand.
Today was a quality event with very good speakers. I'm slightly more optimistic than maybe the panel was, because I know we've learned to deal with uncertainty.
Foresight talk today was quite illuminating in terms of sort of suggesting that the government has made some clear headway in some areas, i.e. regarding EU citizens' rights, and sort of to be able to provide that level of reassurance in quite a confident way. I think it's been a helpful thing for everyone who's attended.